Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of I Made That. Today, I'm super excited. We have our first international guest. We have Saint Ona joining us all the way from the Netherlands. So, he is an all around creative. He really has his roots in fashion. He's an awesome designer, but he also dabbles in music and just a lot of other really fun little projects. I'll let him kind of dive into that. But thank you for joining us, Saint. How are you?
I'm doing all right today.
Awesome. So, for people that might not be familiar with your work, can you give us just a quick run through of what you do?
Well, with the music aspect, I'm just very experimental, like I just do what comes to me and I don't really do what people enjoy. And mostly with fashion, I like to upcycle and kind of discover the new wave that's coming up, kind of with what Joshua Jamal is doing. I'm kind of falling into the same thing like that. Yeah, and I just design stuff like whatever that pops into mind, I just do.
I know you talked a little bit about the upcycling. I've seen some of your pieces, which are amazing, by the way. Can you talk a little bit about how you got into that? Like, how did you even learn how to sew? Where did this idea come from? Did you have anybody in your life that really helped influence that?
I did. I was a few years ago in high school. I was just really like just drawing a lot of like cargo pants and stuff. And like I was very inspired by tech wear because of this artist I like. His name is Scarlord, right? And I was just for years I was fascinated by like his clothing because it was very like it just had so much to it. It had so much detail, so much to consume of it. So I just started drawing a lot of those, and I just one day asked my mom, like, "Hey, is this are you able to maybe turn this into reality?" Because she has a sewing machine. So she made a couple of pieces for me, and then around 2 years later, I came across this one guy at my school, and and he had his own aesthetic. He was totally a person of his own. Like it was actually crazy. Like I talked about him. I talked about him to my friends and stuff. I was like, this guy is insane. So like one day, I just walked up to him and I asked him like, hey, will this design work, whatever. And we really got into talking like, yeah, if you do this, whatever. The same day, I asked my mom, can I use the sewing machine? She was like, yeah, of course. So she led me through the basics, like just basic sewing, and I was like, this is awesome. Months later, I kind of experimented with it. I broke some needles, of course. And yeah, that's pretty much how I got into upcycling. It's just that one guy pretty much put a battery in my back to just really discover what I like.
I think that's so important to have those people in your life that kind of make it okay for you to be you and you to really like push the boundaries like by them being so authentically themselves. And I think that that's what I love about getting to speak with creatives is I think that kind of fuels me and being like, okay, well, this person is living their life so authentically. I want to kind of push the bounds like creatively. So that's really cool that you had that. I know that you're now kind of taking things, which I don't always think that you have to go to school, but I think for things like fashion, it makes a lot of sense to go really learn, the basic fundamentals of even how to like sew a garment, how to lay out, oh my God, not blueprints. What do they call them for clothing? But basically, understanding how to put clothes together, I think that there's a lot to be said for going and like learning that process from somebody. And then you can take it and make it your own, but having like those foundations. Is there anything that really sticks out to you that you have learned being in fashion design school now?
It's pretty much what you would expect, like you have this one class where you have to gather images online, like you kind of have to dive into the designers, so that's one class. Then you have another class that just tells you like, hey, pick a fabric and study the fabric and stuff. But then you also of course have class where you like really get into making it, like sewing machines and like, how do you call it when you,
Oh, like a
yeah,
ruler.
ruler, like you have to take the dimensions of a t-shirt for example, and just kind of have to go. But like it was my first week, so I'm not really sure what's going on actually yet. Like it was my first week at school, like just the other day, so I still have to discover a lot what's going on at that school. Like the basics is pretty much what you would expect, indeed.
It's really fun to get to speak with people like you that are at the very like beginning of their career, because I know one of the other things that we discussed, I didn't realize you were so freshly into fashion design school, which is wonderful. Another really exciting thing that you have going on is you just got your first commissioned piece,
Mhm.
correct?
Correct.
Can you talk me through a little bit about like what that process looked like? Like how did you find this person? Did they reach out? Were you searching for them? Like what did that look like? Because I think that's a really monumental part of your career.
No, I just woke up one day and I checked my Instagram DMs, and there was someone asking me if I could make some flyer designs for their upcoming exhibition. Like he has an exhibition for like fashion and stuff, and I was like, "That's very awesome." And he just got into the talking like, "Okay, this is the address, this is the kind of aesthetic I want to go with." But of course, there was so much more to cover because like I cannot just base it off an aesthetic. So I just asked further because I really wanted to have his vision, like I wanted to see what he saw. So after a lot of talking it took a lot of steps to really get to satisfaction because like with my art there's like a lot of glowing like figures and stuff, right? Like I have to model the figures and I have to a bunch of hoopla, and it just took a pretty long time to kind of get exactly how he wanted it. And then also after the whole commission was pretty much done, he DM'd me and he was like, I messed up the address. Like he sent the wrong address. But that was just one digit off though. Like it was 2701 something, but he wanted to change it to 2301 something. It went pretty smoothly next to just that one thing I mentioned, how the address was incorrect. But the rest was just, thinking, planning, sketching. I like the process.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's interesting. So you are 17 right now. I am about to turn 31. And that like difference in time, like that, like 15 years, I feel like we grew up in completely different worlds. So even you just saying, like, okay, this is how I found my first connection. I woke up and I had a DM on Instagram. I think that social media plays such an interesting part of the creative community now. I think in a lot of really good ways. Obviously, like there's the bad side of social media, but I do think that it is fun to bring people together. So, can you talk me through some of the ways that you have leveraged social media, whether that is, getting inspiration, finding designs that maybe you wouldn't have seen, putting yourself out there? Like, what does that look like for you?
Well, I found myself in the internet on a pretty young age, of course, because like that's just this generation. Like when I was like 12, I discovered like when I was 12, I got my first phone and just kind of started going through Instagram and stuff. But like fast forward, I don't really take that much inspiration from the internet, to be honest. The internet did have a big impact on what I do because like otherwise I wouldn't ever discover like how you're able to make beats or how you're able to like like it's so much that I learned, but not I didn't get inspired that much. I did learn a lot, but like not much inspiration.
I think that's a really fascinating perspective, and it makes sense because, like you're saying, you guys have been on the internet from such a young age that it's almost you're just inundated with information. Whereas I feel like my generation, we lived a lot of our lives outside of the internet, and then maybe we could just kind of like pick and choose more. So I feel like a lot of like what my social media is curated around is like finding like inspiration just from being able to witness other people's art, but not really that like inundation. So that's really interesting. I guess on that note, like where do you find inspiration? What really inspires you?
What inspires me the most is probably just life itself, like how it has some lows, how it has some highs, how some people have like mental illnesses. Like that's something I really get inspired by, mental illness. I don't know what it is, but like seeing people like be very happy or like go through something is so inspiring, and I don't know why. Like for example, I saw at my school there was this homeless man, and he was like, you could tell by his face like life has been hard on him. Like then you look at his clothing, and his clothing is just a reflection of himself. It's gray, it's ruined. So like my inspiration just comes from living. Like I don't search for it, I let it come at me.
Well, that was a really wise answer. No, that makes a lot of sense though. Yeah, I really like what you said about like your clothing reflecting the mood that you're in because I think that there's a lot of things subconsciously and even like you're saying connecting mental illness. I love like color theory and there's so much around, even like feng shui and like all these different things that are like, the environment that you put yourself in. If you put yourself in like a calming room that's like minimalist and has like neutral colors, like it gives you a different mood than being in like a cluttered room with a lot of colors. Even, I have two little kids and we don't like totally aspire to like one way of parenting, but I love a lot of the Montessori stuff. And they even have particular colors, like a lot of the toys, they're all in these like muted tones so that it doesn't overstimulate kids. So that's really an interesting perspective on, the tie-in with clothing and like where people are at in life. I know we just talked like inspiration. Let's talk about, are there any like particular designers? Like who's like your top three people that you really like what they're putting out into the world?
Well, the first one gotta be the guy I was talking about that I came across at school, because like you cannot ever find somebody like him. It's actually insane. Like he's also 17. He's he didn't come from a rich family. He's just so innovative. It's actually crazy. And then at second place, I would probably have Demna, to be honest. Like the minimalistic things he does. Like for example, what was it again? The wait, he had for, I believe he designed it. I'm not sure who designed it, but I think it was him. It was for Yeezy season 10, I believe, and it was like just a rock taped to a like piece of string, whatever, right? Like it's just so simple and like it's easy to replicate. That's what I appreciate. It's just he puts it out to the world, and everybody, pretty much anybody, can just be like, I can do the same. So I like the minimalism. And number three, I don't know, Virgil Abloh probably, because he like doesn't just design clothing. He does cars, houses, album covers. Switch Virgil Abloh and Demna, to be honest. Virgil Abloh is second, Demna third.
I like it. I don't know if you, I had, well, he's again like a multi-talented creative. He does like a lot of like styling and stuff too. And his name is Haj. And we had a really good conversation about Virgil. And we both were like, Virgil needs to be on everybody's mood board. I think that he was just so insanely talented, so willing to share knowledge. But like you're saying, just his creativity didn't have any bounds. And I think that for a lot of creatives, that's true. But I think people, even as creatives, we get kind of scared to push the envelope. I think we're very in a culture of like having to niche down and even like fit into boxes as creatives. So I think that when I speak to people like you, where it's, you're not afraid to do fashion, like, and music and have, like even like these graphic design projects going on where you're working on the flyers. I think that creativity can translate across so many different mediums. Big Virgil fan. Definitely good list though. I need to see this guy. I feel like we should definitely shout him out in the show notes because I feel like a lot of us are going to want to go check out his style. It sounds iconic.
Yeah, I can give you his Instagram and you can like maybe edit it in later or something like.
Yeah. So, love all the inspiration talk. Can we talk about you specifically? I want to talk through like what your creative process looks like. Can you walk us through that?
Definitely, it's very complicated though, to be honest. Like I'm
Yeah.
sometimes I'm not even sure what I'm doing. It's just it comes at me and I just let it channel through me. Like the other day I was kind of having an episode or something. I don't know what it was, but I just came to a weird conclusion. Like I just texted my girlfriend and I'm like, hey, I think I may be just a shell just to output creativity. And she was like, no, 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 you're a person, you're a person. And I'm like, I'm a person. But like most of my creativity is just, again, what I said, just living, just letting everything come at me and just really listening to myself and know what others have to say. Like, for example, if I text one of my friends that I want to buy an iPhone 4 for a photography project. That I will come later to that. That's awesome. I have a great idea. Most of them would just say, huh, that's stupid. But like, I would not let that take me down, you know? Like, I would not let that stop me because I know my idea is great, so I'm gonna go with it. But like, inspiration comes at me. I don't look for it. I'm kind of against looking for it. Like, I tell people, don't go looking for it because you will be disappointed and you will just follow what is already made. You know, like, it's okay to copy because at the end of the copies, you find yourself, of course. But don't just go looking for it because you won't find it. You have to let it come at you. You have to sit down. You have to think. Remove your phone, remove your laptop. Just sit there and think. Think about what you experience. Think about what you want to experience. Like, just be you. You know, like that's my creativity. I just think.
I think for a lot of people, so I totally understand what you're saying. And I think for me, really in the past like 5 years, I've been able to trust myself and trust the process a little bit more. I think it's fascinating at this young of an age, you have that confidence in yourself and that understanding of like how to create that like clear headspace. Has that always come really naturally to you?
No, I was very much in a box for most of my life. Like, I only really started like doing what I wanted since like last year, to be honest. Like, I
Oh,
would
wow.
always just kind of follow what's safe. You know, I always played it safe till last year. And till last year, I got when I was at high school, I got shit on. Like, I got really shit on for just following my vision because nobody else was like, because like I live in the Netherlands, like everybody here is a big trend follower, and that sucks. That very much sucks. Like, when you look at the ground, like when you look at people's feet, you wouldn't believe how many people have the same shoes. The Air Force Ones in white Air Force Ones. Everybody had them, and I was like, I get that you like them, but do you really like them, or are you just following trends? Because I didn't see you wearing that 5 years ago. So yeah.
No, I think that is really interesting. Is there anything in particular that you can attribute to like giving yourself that free space? Was it meeting your friend who was like really like living his life so authentically outside of the box? Or like, is there anything that you feel like, oh, that's what gave me that space to freely do what I wanted without judgment from others affecting me?
That one friend was pretty much just the gateway to like, because like I saw him and his clothes were like ripped apart. It had like weird stitches. It had like so much shit out of the box that was just, my girlfriend thought he was homeless. But like, yeah, but like seeing him walk around school, I was like, damn. He got judged a lot. A lot of people were like taking pictures of him, making fun of him, saying, "Oh, hell no," and stuff. But I was like,
Oh,
yeah, he got kind of shit on by a lot of people. But like, I was inspired by that, by just being so out of the box that people genuinely just start being mean. I was like, damn, being yourself is awesome. So then I just kind of followed his lead, sort of, and I just started to make my own stuff, wearing it to school and stuff. But a lot of people didn't like it, but like that's the fun part, because like the group is here, you're here, and people see that you have your own thing. There are also some people that are like, wow, what you're doing is cool, and I really appreciate it. Like, people that like get it, like, not per se get it, but like understand, like, he's him, she's her, whatever, like, that's awesome. That are also people that just allow you to be yourself.
well, I think being able to like evoke any kind of emotion through your art or like your personal style is always a really interesting dynamic for me. So, like you're saying, this guy, maybe was getting a lot of hate, but people felt so strongly about what he was wearing that they had some kind of an emotional reaction to that, whether that was what is we like perceive as a good emotion or a bad emotion. They were feeling something based off of what he was wearing.
Exactly.
And I think that's really powerful. And I think that that's something, you were speaking about these pieces that are so simple that like anybody could do it. So one of my favorite painters is Mark Rothko. I don't know if you're familiar, but he does He was like in the 60s mostly. They're like these huge paintings. They're always, well, they're generally like gradients of color or just like really simple like squares of color, but they have like a lot of depth. It looks like when you see it, you're like, oh my God, why do these sell for so much money? This is so easy. Anybody could do it. But when you really look at them, or if you try and go and sit down and paint something like this, it doesn't have that depth and emotion. Like it's an emotional experience seeing one of his paintings in person. So I think I think that I really resonate with kind of like that dynamic. I think that that's really interesting.
And about what you were saying about the paintings, people have the same judgment about like Basquiat, right? Like they were like, "Oh, those are child paintings," but like there are so much layers. Like only he could have done it. Only he could have written that piece of text because like it's what he felt, you know. But like so many people are like, "Oh, anybody can do that." And yeah, of course, you can draw a stick figure, but can you revoke the emotion though? Like, can you give somebody that reaction? No, you know, because you're like, it's just these people are just so, I guess, jealous of not taking any steps.
I think it's like definitely being like confined. I think that, when you talk about Basquiat, like obviously I draw parallels to like Banksy nowadays. I think a lot of people have the same narrative around him and his works but again, like nobody else is doing it the way he's doing it. Why? We're not, you can't just paint something on a piece of concrete and then have it go sell for $60 million or whatever. Like there's something to that. There's some emotion attached to the fact that he made that. So art's a wild time though. Okay. So we went through a lot of like what inspires you. I know we talked about, like mental health and you kind of viewing the world through like ups and downs and like all these different emotions. Can you tell me about like a negative situation that maybe you've been through that you really learned from and helped, keep you continuing on this creative journey?
Yeah, probably the worst timeline in my life, to be honest, was when I was 12 till 16. I had this crazy porn addiction, and I was like, wow, that's terrible. But for some reason, I took inspiration from it. Like when I just saw that demonic stuff, I was like, the lighting is cool, the colors in the background are cool. But like, yeah, no, that was such a bad part in my life that like most of what I made was just negative, you know. But like, I don't watch that shit anymore, and I really saw myself elevate, you know, like my designs got like everything pretty much got better since I got out of that addiction.
I think that's another really interesting difference between like my generation and your generation. I think that that's like a very typical, you guys are so subjected to like all these hypersexual images, whether it's like actually on like a porn website or you're just like on, Snapchat or Instagram. It's so thrown at you. It's so unfiltered. It's it's a lot to process. So what really helped you like get on the other side of that? Was it just like being online less, discovering art, like discovering other things that you were into? Like what did that look like?
It was more of a sacrifice. Like I was crazy addicted, right? But like then my now girlfriend, right? Before she was my girlfriend, when we talked, I was like, I have to drop this. I have to change myself in order to like be with this person, you know? Since that day, I haven't touched it ever again because like I had to lay myself down for somebody, you know? Like I couldn't be stuck in those habits that I forced myself to like delete Twitter and stuff.
Well, that's really wonderful. I think that, we talked about having those people in your life that kind of like help you get to the next level artistically, but I think like personally it's important to have a partner that's like that too. I know my husband is definitely that for me. He makes me want more out of life and even to just like provide things for him and my kids. So I think again that's really wonderful that you have like such a supportive partner that like makes you want to be better in life.
And that's a beautiful thing, just having somebody that like that elevates you instead of just taking you down.
Exactly. I feel like it's like a true partnership. You kind of like fuel each other. And I don't think that everybody always gets that. So, again, super cool that you're getting to experience that at this age. Because I know when I was 17, that was not the dynamic of the relationships. It was just a hot mess. We're going to switch gears totally here. Who would be your dream client? Like, if you could either collaborate with somebody, be hired by somebody, work with somebody, who would that be?
That's a tough one. That's a very tough one.
I know it's a big question.
Probably David Cho, to be honest. David Cho is
I don't know if I'm familiar with him.
he was the I don't know if you've heard the story, but he was the one that like got commissioned by Mark Zuckerberg somewhere in 2005 or something to do some murals in the Facebook headquarters. And they asked David Cho like, "Hey, do you want 60K for this, or do you want some stock?" David Cho was like, "Give me some stock." David Cho is a millionaire now, of course. But like he's so inspiring because he's a millionaire. In the Joe Rogan podcast, he said, "I don't even sell my art anymore. I just give it away." And like he's just so humble and like down to earth. Like with a lot of artists, there comes an ego, and of course, having an ego is great. But like they almost don't seem human anymore. Like it's very weird to see this very famous artist just being like so separated from like normal society. But like, with David Cho, like David Cho just posts on Instagram, likes the comments, and like is more into the obscure side of things. Like for example, he was wearing a Death Grips hoodie in one of his videos. So like he's still himself after all this money and stuff. Like I really want to work with him because of that character he has. Like not even because of the art, but just the character. Like it would just be so fun to like spend what a week with him and just go around and just making stuff, because like he also doesn't subject himself to just one thing, like he has the graffiti, he does the crayons, like it's so much going on, and I'm like, that's awesome. I want to spend a day or two with him. He's cool as fuck.
I think that for me, so in my business, we handle like graphic design, but particularly like branding. So, like a lot of logos, websites. Most of our business is new businesses, like people just starting out. And I don't look at clients as like, okay, you have to be in this certain sector of work. The only way that we are going to work with you is if you really love what you do. And so it's the same kind of principle, that it sounds like he's showing through like this character. It's like if I handed you $1 million, nothing would change. It's everything is still going to be the same because you're so invested in this. Like if you won the lottery tomorrow, you're still going to be working in this business. This is what you love to do. And so I think, to your point, like just being around those kind of people that have that kind of character and that are just so invested in what they do is really fascinating. So really good answer again on that one. I'll definitely have to look him up.
Now he has some great stuff. Like his art is really insane.
I guess kind of to piggyback off of that conversation too, I do see, we kind of talked about social media a little bit earlier. I think that that has definitely fed into a lot of these high profile artists' egos. I won't name names. Somebody recently, though, who also worked with Mark Zuckerberg, um, he just rubs me the wrong way. I feel like once you get to a certain level of success and you're around people and it's kind of like a sounding board, I think that some people let it get to their head and they feel better than other people. And I don't think that that always creates like the most authentic art pieces. So it sounds like with David Cho, it's the complete opposite, and that he was able to be successful, but still be rooted in his art in an authentic way. And so that's just really cool to see. So I always love to end the podcast. I have to ask every single guest that comes on here, what is the wildest story that you can tell me on this podcast?
Whew, that's also a tough one.
Don't tell me anything that will get you arrested. That's always, I have to preface it. Like we can get wild, but like this is on
Yeah.
record.
Um, I don't really think there's anything wild. Like, not like I got like I don't know a box of paint on my head or something. I think the weirdest thing I can tell is probably this weird kid that was fucking obsessed at high school. Like, whenever I would talk, he would like just shit on me. Like, some guy asked me, like, "Hey, do you make music?" And I was just kind of describing my music, like, "Yeah, I use those elements and stuff." And for some reason, this kid would stop his own conversation to look at me and then laugh. What the fuck? But yeah, I don't really have anything wild next to just straight up weird.
I mean, that's a wild reaction for sure. Very bold.
Very odd to me.
Yeah, 100%. Well, Saint, I'm so thankful for having you here today. Before we wrap up, I definitely want to give you a chance to tell everybody where they can find you on social media, how they can get in touch with you if they want to commission you for anything. What is the best way to do so?
The best way to do so is probably going to one of my Instagrams. My Instagram, where I just kind of keep it personal, is Saint Ona 2037, the year 2037. And then if you want to like do some commissions for art, you can or go to my Instagram. That's VII Ona ONA .jpg. But you can also just reach out to me through email saintana7 at gmail.com. That's correct.
Okay, perfect. And just so we're all clear, it's Saint Saint, and then Anna is Ona. So we'll drop everything in the show notes as well. But thank you so much for coming out and spending your time. I know we're on a crazy time difference, so we worked through that. But I really appreciate your insight and thank you for coming on the I Made That podcast.
Awesome.
All right, guys, we will see you next week with another interview, another creative. Have a good rest of the week.
Stay creative.
Yeah.
Yeah.